And we are live. Man, what's going on, everybody? It's SET&KEY Media back in the building with another one, man. What's this, like the third live tonight? The other two, technical difficulties. Don't worry about it. But, man, I'm back with another one. It's Key, man, your favorite big four-headed YouTuber, back with another one. Tonight, we got Joe Biden in an attempt for, I guess, what appears to be a chance to redeem himself after the last debate he had with President Trump. So he got out here solo. He started cooking up, or at least trying to. We're going to see what old man Joe was saying, man. Let's get right into it, man. Make sure to like the video on the way in. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well if you're feeling the content. It's SET&KEY Media, man. Let's go.
Hey, buddy. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, good evening.
Should let his ass have a seat.
We just concluded this year's NATO summit, and the consensus among the members was it was a great success. It was especially momentous because it represented the 75th year of the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us. Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine. Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march.
Now, God damn it, this is probably the most, I would say, this could be the most misleading thing for somebody who doesn't really fact check and somebody who's just gung-ho on one side and they just kind of go whatever the main narrative is. So for people like that, man, that's what you got SET&KEY Media here for. So go ahead and like the video. But off of what he just said, he called him a gung-ho, war crazy, war criminal, madman. He's talking about Putin, right? Now, don't let this distract you from the fact that this whole beef, this whole conflict, this whole proxy war was started off of the fact that NATO and allied forces moved to add Ukraine to their alliance. And ultimately, Ukraine sharing a border with Russia, something that's always, carried its own tension and weight, aggravated Putin to the point of, making that invasion in Ukraine because he felt like, okay, well, NATO's right here at our doorstep, man. I'm going to come back and take what's mine. That's how he felt. So he calling him a madman. Some might say he just felt like his toes was getting stepped on. Back to the video.
But this time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of...
Who didn't know that? That was even at play when Trump was in office, because if you go back and listen to what Trump has said, and if you go back to kind of what was happening at the time, there's always been that tension there, like I said. So they have been contemplating infiltrating or should I say entering Ukraine for quite some time, really. So that wasn't something that happened underneath the Biden administration, talking about we had been privy to that facts months before. Like, that had been something that had been years in the making. Come on now.
It tells me declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. But Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia. The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States.
Yeah, as Putin and Russian forces still continue to close in, and unfortunately, as innocent lives continue to be lost. So he's saying it's like it's some triumph when in the background, man, we got brothers, fathers, uncles, and, you know, so forth and so on that are unfortunately, you know, being taken away from their families. All because of some silly proxy. That's costing us, goddammit.
And to thank me personally. For all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance. And it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would...
How many times, this is the over or under on 10. Over under 10. How many, what do you guys have? How many times did Biden have to practice his script for tonight? Like, how many times? Over under 10. Let me know in the comments, man.
Feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, do whatever the hell you want. In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said.
Now, if you go back in the reasoning as to why he said that, he probably meant, if you follow the context, he probably meant it was strategically genius because he didn't do it while he was in office, but he waited until yo sleepy ice cream eating ass was in office. Yeah, he waited until it was a green light. So it was genius. Not when Trump was in office, when it was going to be a problem. When that nigga would have been like, oh, what you doing, big dog? Slow your roll. I know you think we cool, but it's still rules to this shit. Now, he waited until your ass was in office, and he probably sat at the helm and was just like, yeah, let's go. Let's make our move.
But I made it clear a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history, and that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do.
So Article 5 is a treaty. Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, NATO, as we know it, states that if a NATO member is attacked, all other members consider an attack on all of them. So any NATO alliance, essentially, once Ukraine was attacked, would have considered it an attack on them and would have retaliated appropriately.
Now, the future of American policy is up to the American people. This is much more than a political question. It's more than that. It's a national security issue. Don't reduce this to the usual testament that people talk about, issues of being a political campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO? Are you safer? Family safer? I believe the American people know. The answer to all those questions is yes. And I believe...
If it comes down to having to send our hard-earned taxpayer dollars that could be used locally, that could be used nationwide, if it comes down to sending that shit away to Ukraine in the form of shells and bombs and tanks and guns and whatever else feeds the American industrial complex, or the military complex, I should say. If it comes down to that, nah, hell nah. Myself and a lot of other Americans I've been talking to, a lot of other people that, you know, I've had conversations with, or just in general that I've seen, you know, people share their opinion on. A lot of people are waking up. Nobody's with that for real. Like, I think the general consensus is like, yo, we kind of like, we starting to question this shit. Like, why are we sending all our bread away?
Believe the American people understand that America is stronger.
Like, if there's a long-term investment play, you gotta let us know, G. But if it, how it looks right now is just like you're taking all of our money and throwing it away.
This is from Truman to Reagan to me, still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let me turn to three other key issues. Just this morning, we had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and airfares. Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year.
Huh?
We're going to keep working to take down corporate
greed. Hold on a second. Does he really know what he's saying here? Like, I know they told him what to say right before he came out here. Like, I know that.
Damn, son.
Trust me, I get it. But, bro, I just went to the grocery store. Like, I go to the grocery store weekly. This shit ain't going down, G. It's going up. Like, y'all let me know, man. Maybe it's just a local thing, but we got people viewing from all over. So let me know in the comments, bro. Y'all, is that accurate? Like, is the groceries going down and y'all paying less for y'all steaks or more than y'all was at the beginning of the year? Let me know.
Agreed to bring those prices down further. Meanwhile, Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took
By the way, Trump did agree to do another CNN-like debate with Biden. No audience. He agreed to do another debate, but I'm not really sure what ended up happening because, as you see, Biden is here solo. So I'm not sure if that means he declined the debate with Trump or if he's going to do another debate with Trump and he just had to get his own little 2 cents out there before that happened. Just throwing that out there.
Executive action last month. As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We
Now, that is probably the most important thing he has said thus far. We're United States. We're the big dogs, top of the food chain, no doubt about it, right? And that's just the way it is. So, that being said, our leader should reflect exactly that. Top of the food chain, big dog, sharp, number one, superb, big dog, like I said, top guy. Now, you can't sit here and tell me out of the two candidates we got, Joe exudes big guy, that man. He's that guy energy. You can't tell me that. You really can't sit here and tell me that.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
That's kind of Joe Biden right there.
We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here. Reuters, Jeff Mason.
Mr. President, your political
No, I think he is. No, you know what? I give him credit. I think he's as sharp as somebody can be with a declining mental state.
future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
Damn, even the Saudis? God damn. Everybody concerned about Joe. And like I said, man, like all jokes aside, like no funniness intended. Like I promise if you laugh, I'm not trying to be funny, but let this old ass man rest. Like I said, it's damn near sad that they trying to parade him across the stage like he's actually doing something. Like this is actually him. Like I don't know, whatever drug cocktail they done shot this man up with, whatever script they done had him study to memory. It's a facade. It's all fake. They putting the velvet over our eyes to make it feel and look good, but bro, underneath the truth that it actually is, this man can't lead us another 4. And I'll be honest, I was gonna throw it in there and but I'll just say it for y'all. Like the guy, I think his name is George. He got a weird last name. He's the one that did the interview with the president right after the debate he had with Trump. He was caught candidly saying, like, as he was walking down the street, randomly recorded, being like, yeah, I don't think Biden can serve another 4 years. This is the guy that did the interview with him after the debate to kind of clear Biden's name a little bit, to make him look a little bit better. That guy said, I don't think he can go another 4 years.
Well, you just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, so I think she was not qualified to be president. Vice President,
if she were at the top of the ticket.
Look,
His ability separately.
I don't know if
what
y'all peeped
concerns
that.
do you
I'm gonna
have
let it play out
about
again.
Vice President Harris's
tell me if y'all
ability
peeped
to
this.
beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, so I think she was not qualified to be president.
Vice President Trump. If you think she's not qualified.
Wait a minute.
Hold on now, Grandpa.
So let's start there. Number one, the fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once.
Oh my God. If you think you're the most qualified.
And I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that
Right.
senators and congressmen
Vice President.
running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now.
Dog, that's not a good sign. Did he really just make that comparison? Did he really just grab at that? That was the worst comparison he could have made in this moment, where he's already under scrutiny for having low approval ratings, you know, Fellow Democratic leaders are calling for him to step out of the race, step aside, let Kamala go, let somebody else, maybe Gavin Newsom, somebody else. We've heard it all, right? This man is grasping at anything to the point where he just said there's been other presidents that have ran that have had lower approval ratings than I have. Like, bro, that's not a good thing. That's not a flex, G. That's not a flex, Joe.
Later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving.
Just keep swimming.
Because,
like Dory.
look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish. There's so much, we've made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world.
Oh, my God.
Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800.
You mean the crashing dollar? You mean the dollar that was strong for as long as we've known it to be, but has recently, come under siege as far as countries, namely like UAE not using American dollars to back the oil anymore. We got BRICS going on. So you telling me that the dollar economy is stronger than ever under you? Look, I'm no economist, I'm no politician, but I don't know, G. I don't know, G.
100,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million. So things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down, and so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today.
Just like he just mixed up Kamala and Trump, called him Vice President Trump.
And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, and the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on
why
that.
does he be stuck in the poses?
Officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading?
And this is my stance, right? Even if you want to say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not as bad as they make it out to be. Oh, they're exaggerating about Biden's cognitive state. They're making it seem worse than what it is. Like, let's be honest. The man's in his 70s. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. It's not like he's going to wake up tomorrow and snap back to the Biden of 4, 5, 8, 10 years ago. Like, it's not going to happen. So if this is what he's giving us now, 2024, imagine what we getting out of him in 2027, 2028. Like, come on now.
This conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky.
Damn.
And then
no fucking way. I don't even know if they know how bad this looks. They just called this man out on confusing Putin with Zelensky, and he did it again while trying to correct himself.
Add 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that...
He's like, look, I'm an old man, but I'm not that old. Like, bro, you over here like, damn, should I bomb Iran or should I bomb Egypt? God damn it. I fell asleep. Like, bro, like, that's what we looking at here.
That we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time. And
bro, you thought? That's not really saying much, Joe. That's not really saying much, judging by where you're at right now. Like, do you even know, like, bro? Do you even know where you're at right now? Everybody stop everything right now. Somebody check on Joe. Somebody check on this man right now. Ask him if he knows where he's at. Ask him how many fingers you holding up, and ask him to count from 1 to 10. Just let's make sure.
Find me a world leader.
You can't
who
be
didn't
too
think
sure
it
out here.
was. Next one. Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race?
And that's the worst look. That is probably the worst look that she just explained right there, is that if you go look at the people who's been talking, the political pundits that have been in the media for the past couple of weeks since the debate he had with Trump, like she just said, they've been some of his strongest allies over the past election cycle, over the past 4 years. Like, the people who are supporting him are the people who are now coming out and being like, I don't know, Joe. Like, I think you should sit this one out.
Despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office.
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably,
sometimes you get injured during a race and you can't finish. A valiant effort, my friend. An effort to be respected. Your name will live on. Your name will go down in the history books, for better or for worse. But that being said, dog, it's time to hang up the boots, man. Time to hang up the boots. Not gonna lie.
many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward can't do that. It's going to cause inflation. Things are going to skyrocket. The debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plan so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory, that if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My dad was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to implement, was able to implement as president.
Yeah, everybody needs a little help at a certain point in time. And, you know, this is me kind of giving y'all a little bit of my political stance. And again, I don't affiliate myself too strongly with either side. I don't claim a political party or anything. So everybody needs a little kick in the ass, a little help, maybe a little, you know, a little nudge in the right direction at every point in time, whether that be a literal nudge or whether that be a stimulus check from the government. I think that could help anybody at any given point in time. But it's to the point when you're dependent on that, when you abuse and use that shit, you know, taking up resource from people who actually need it, or you just use that shit as a crutch rather than going out and getting the shit on your own, like a real hustler, or just like a real American does, like just like any real American would do, going out there getting that shit on your own, because goddamn it, this is America. That's when I got a problem with the shit. So yeah, I kind of disagree a little bit with what Joe just said right there, man. Some of these folks that are using the government assistance programs and shit like that have been too dependent on it, to have no plans of getting off of it, are living life in a way that they can maintain their status on it. So yeah, we gotta check that. We definitely gotta manage that a lot better going forward. I don't care who's in office.
I believed when I was a senator, and that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way, we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, a mainstream economist, who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the job. And by the way, I come from the corporate state of the world. Delaware has more corporations registered in Delaware than every other state in the nation combined. I'm not anti-corporate.
Really?
But corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase. Corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%. We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro?
See, this is the problem when they make laws and implement taxes and tariffs on the rich like that. Is there is a trickle-down effect regardless of what he just said. If they start taxing the rich, then that means the rich start taxing us. And I don't mean taking more money out of our checks or we owe them more taxes. I mean, what we get from them is less. Like the pay at our jobs, we don't see that increase. Yeah, he's talking about a 5% limit on rent increase, but now we're not getting the renovations that we probably would have got every 2 or so years or whatever. Like, there's a direct effect when he's making those very stringent rules against the corporations, because ultimately, bro, that's who runs the economy, is these big ass conglomerates who most of us work for. So if Joe's being strict on them, they're being strict on us. They ain't showing us no love. We ain't getting no extra bonuses or no raises.
Union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there, and import what the product was. And so,
again, something else that has been in the process for years, like Trump was talking about getting that chip factory over here because there was a chip shortage during COVID. Like, so you guys really got to pay attention to the timeline of what's been going on. Now, if you're younger and a lot of this stuff you're just now getting privy to, I can understand. But if you're older, later in your 20s or above, y'all gotta start remembering some of the stuff that's going on, because revisionist history is a real thing, and they will try and sell you. I won't even say the word, but they will try and sell you a different story from what actually went on, just to paint a certain narrative. We had a chip shortage during COVID. They were already talking about getting those factories moved from Taiwan back over here. Come on now, y'all.
what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe. To Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming in the bean. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen.
That nigga talking in his Batman voice. He said none of you thought that would happen.
And it's going to grow economies. All through, and by the way, red states and blue states.
Nobody cared who I was till I took off the mask. Niggas sound like Batman or Bane.
States. Matter of fact, there's as much in red states as in blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the
Appreciate
idea
y'all tuning in, man. Make sure to like the video.
We can't
on your way
continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows. The poor have a shot, the wealthy do well. But the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that?
That jab on the rich not paying their taxes always gets me, because trust me, we see all the time how hard the IRS comes for you when you don't pay your goddamn taxes. You don't think they're coming at these millionaires just as hard, if not harder? So the people who aren't paying taxes, they're really just mad at those folks for, I wouldn't say finessing, but I would say going through the legality of the tax laws and paying as little taxes as possible, because they 9 out of 10 times have businesses and employ people, maybe use real estate or other tax offsetting ways and things of that nature. So it's not necessarily a finesse. It's what the rich do, bro. They don't pay taxes, bro. Like, for real. Like, not like that. Like, they do, but they don't.
What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in this.
Yeah, and I'm again, I don't have any political affiliation, so don't roast me, but I'm more so on the Trump side when it comes to the stance on y'all know what about the babies. Just because I think that should be left up to the states. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to live your individual life, but I think when it comes to freedom in that regard, it should be left up to the states, because a lot of times how we view that issue has a lot to do with where we are, where we grew up, the culture in that region. So I think that is best served and it's best fit if the state individually makes that decision.
Senate, she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning. I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look.
Like, Joe, it's all right, man. Like, the denial makes it look worse. We've seen the decline in your speech, right? We've all seen the memes of you being frozen in time just at these press conferences and at these public sightings and events. Like, it damn near would look better if you just came out and said, like, look, man, I'm getting old. I'm in my 70s, but I still got it. Like, I'm still kicking. Like, we not going down without a fight. You ain't gave up on your grandpa. The nigga who started everything for the family, the nigga who put the family on, don't give up on Joe. I got y'all. It would damn near be more galvanizing to do something like that versus this. This is kind of like turning people off. Like, you're sitting here obviously lying on the presser. Like, nah, I never said I had to go to bed early. What time is it? God damn it, let's finish this up. I got to go to bed at 8.
What I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you look at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing. And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Some with thousands of people showing up. And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway.
Now, that would be taxing and tiring for anybody. But a 70-year-old plus man on, I would say, his mental and cognitive decline is damn near multiplied by 10. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Again, I think there's damn near power and a little bit of pride in admitting, like, look, I lost this step, but I'm still kicking. Like, I still got y'all. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. I got y'all. I'm the man. Like, I'm the man. Trump is not even an option, and I got y'all for the next 4 years. Him trying to be like, nah, I'm good. I got it. It's just the time zone switches, and it's this and this that. I'm not going to bed later. I'm getting up earlier. Like, hold on, bro.
That's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things. They add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway.
Goodness gracious, this is not a good look. You talking about I love my staff, but they add things, the antics. Like, Joe, stay on topic.
I'm sorry, Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
Probably the most important question thus far tonight. Let's see what he got to say.
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't.
Do you make sense right now?
The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten him more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice.
I'm sorry, but just the thought of this nigga talking weapons is making me nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Are y'all comfortable with him over here talking about high defense military grade weaponry? I got him more ballistic missiles, more cruise missiles, more bombs, more tanks. Like, are y'all comfortable sitting here listening to this old geriatric ass, sleepy ass man talk about bombs and war? Like, it's giving me an uneasy feeling. I'm not gonna lie.
My commander in chief, the chief of
like,
staff
damn,
of
this
the military,
man really controls the fate
well
of our
as
future.
The Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
Bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have bad nights, sir? How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or on some matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done?
One cocktail of every drug on the face of the planet and some that aren't even FDA approved. 2 shots of that and here I go. I'm out here with y'all. Look at me. I feel like a spring chicken. Niggas start dancing and everything. Ah, shit. Nah, I'm just playing. But y'all know this man off something, man. They ain't just send him out here willy-nilly raw dog, just get up and go at him, go kill him, Joe, break a leg. Like, nah, they didn't shot this man up with 1,000 cc's of the strongest shit you could find.
Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's got more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs this last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None. What I got
We
here?
ask.
Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States.
That's
But
scary.
there's a
That's
concern.
scary. Not gonna lie. Anybody who's saying that, you gotta look into why they're saying that.
Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding
How can I say this without stumbling and fumbling my words?
too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. He'd be a disaster. He'd be a disaster. I mean,
They running with the same narrative of, oh, Trump can't run, he's crazy, he's gonna do all this crazy stuff. Like, do you really trust him? Like, bro, we already seen what Trump's gonna do in there. Like, he's not gonna do the crazy shit that y'all have proclaimed that he's gonna do. Like, we've seen 4 years of Trump, we've seen 4 years of Biden. Now let people make their decision off of that. Like, all I know is Trump wasn't as crazy as y'all wanted to have people believe he was. Like, we've seen him serve a whole term. Like, we still here. We still kicking. Like, the shit that y'all said he was going to do, half of the shit, he never did. It wasn't even in his plan.
I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO or something.
Like, think about it. That nigga said that was his whole campaign. Like, I'm going to build the wall. I'm going to build the wall. Bro, he ain't even build a wall. He ain't even build a wall.
To that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you, from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it. And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine...
Bro, Biden, the more you say it, it doesn't make it any more convincing. Like, yeah, it's like he's trying to say it enough times for us to be like, you know what? He said it enough times. I think it sounds good. It sounds good at this point. He done said it 100 times. Like, no G.
...does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong. You may recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva, and he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't be in Eastern Europe, etc. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine, because you can get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland. Could he come?
Whoa, why you go from 4 weeks to 5 months? This is the type of shit that our world leader needs to be sharp on. Like, he can't be forgetting dates and names and places and that type of shit. Like, come on now, dog. Come on now. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, stepping down or, you know, having to, what's it called when like a judge steps down, like from the case, having to recuse yourself, you know, of your position. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually respectful. There's grace in that. You know, go out with grace. Don't go out, you know, lying to us.
Come and see me. Because in my office, I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe I can't recall whether he said it publicly in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind it being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations, 50, to support Ukraine. 50. And we're able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia.
And there's a deeper alliance going on with these NATO allied forces than what meets the eye and that they, you know, tell us about. We'll get into that at some point, probably not in this video, maybe not even on YouTube, but make sure to follow us on Rumble as well. But we'll get into that for y'all guys because there's more to that story.
Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States.
And like the video on the way in.
We're making the world
Appreciate
safer and
y'all
stronger.
tuning in with me.
Because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger. David Sanger. Where's it?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued...
He was like, hell nah, I hate what you're doing to this country. I hate what you done did to my family, Joe. I can't afford anything. We on the brink of eviction. We on the brink of getting my car repossessed. All type of shit going on because of Bidenomics, my man. Like, it's like, nah.
Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating. They're getting access to additional. They're not supplying weapons themselves. They're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president.
I'm not sure about that. I know Trump has spent some time with him, and Trump was cool with all the world leaders. Like, he was cool to the point where
for real,
they were cordial. They could show up in the media together. They could shake their hands, be diplomatic. But he also had these niggas have a healthy fear and respect of the United States and our supremacy. Like, yeah, we cool. Yeah, I'm all for open trade. I'm all for open immigration. Let's have a good relationship. Like I said, let's do it good. Let's do it big. Let's do it nice. But don't think you just finna be running over here doing whatever, because at the end of the day, bro, you gotta know America's police and shit. We the world police. We see some shit we don't like, we step in.
And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that she believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we have to make clear. China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example, we're in a situation where, and we've reestablished direct contact with China after that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden things came to an end.
You mean the balloon that nobody's mentioned since the shit happened? Yes, I do remember that Chinese spy balloon. Yes, I do.
Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting both the Pacific Basin as well as Europe, and as it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well, if you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules, and you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have.
Damn.
There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration.
That sounds very Chinese, not gonna lie. Like, they want that data.
And other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in, because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
Interrupt that impact?
Yes, I do, but I'm not prepared to talk about the detail of it in public. And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them in as a consequence of that their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and I didn't hear any. I can't swear
we've been
that
going
everyone
for about
agreed
an
because
hour,
not everybody
so,
got to talk about it.
Let Joe get
But
to the end of his
we haven't
speech right
in
here
earnest yet.
and wrap it up.
Most
nice
of the time,
and
it doesn't
sweet for
start
y'all.
till after
Appreciate y'all tuning
September,
in, man.
after Labor Day. So a lot can happen.
Yeah, as I was saying, I appreciate y'all tuning in. It's been a fire video, fire pod so far. Sleepy Joe done gave us, I guess, an update on where he's at and how he feels about the race. And he still feels like he's the strongest candidate as anybody else. Like, he ain't stepping to the side for Gavin Newsom or any other of these Democrats that we've heard, Michelle, Barack, Kamala even. Nah, he said it's all me. It's all Big Dog Joe. Like, I done lost a step, but hey, I'm what you got. I'm what you got. That's his stance. I'm what you got.
But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, we talk about...
Anytime he says he's the best, I just laugh. It's just funny. It's like he doesn't even really believe it.
Money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank. We're doing well. So with that, you want to follow up on any of that you just asked me?
Yes. You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
Damn.
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
Wow, nah, see, this is where you really got to look at him and be like, hold on. You damn near accusing Trump of, you damn near got the mentality you accusing Trump of. Like, if they tell Trump, like, all right, you got to go, nah, I ain't going nowhere, I'm staying. You just said if your team, if your cabinet members, if the people you work with and know your campaign and your goal and your vision closest came to you and said, look, Joe, we ran the data, we ran the analytics. Actually, Kamala has a better chance of running against Trump than you do at this point. He said, nah, I ain't going out unless they tell me there is no chance I can win. Like, bro, that's what they just came and told you.
Wait a minute. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that.
Mr. President.
No poll says that. He's hitting us with the Batman voice. I had a hard life growing up. I've seen my parents get killed in an alleyway. When I was 8 years old, I was just a boy.
Wait a minute. Okay. Thank you.
This ends tonight's press conference. Thanks, everybody.
I always think that chatter of them trying to get that last question out before whoever they're trying to question or interview, them, yelling over each other. I always think that's hilarious. But it is funny, even funnier how he walks out on that note. Like, yo, so yeah, if they came to you and they said, like, actually, Kamala has a better chance of winning. Like, we ran the data. We looked at the numbers. Like, we ran this shit. Like, Kamala has a better chance of running against Trump. Like, just because everything that's happened, we're at in the timeline. We getting somebody else in there takes too long. It just looks too shady. We can't really get the American people to buy that. But what we can get them to buy is Kamala has been in your cabinet. She's vice president. She knows your campaign best. Step aside for her. She has a better chance to get. Oh no, I ain't going out unless there's no chance I could win. And nobody said that. I talk like this in my Batman voice when I'm really trying to prove a point. I don't know what the hell that was from Biden at the end there, but that's what we got, and that's who we got in office. So, yeah, like I said, let me know how y'all feel on that. 4 more years of Joe, 4 more years of the Biden campaign. Are we going to get Joe? Are we going to get Kamala? Are we going to get Trump? Let me know, man. Let me know how y'all feel on that for sure. Appreciate y'all watching the video tonight, tuning in. We'll probably have set in here in a little bit on some more content for y'all. Make sure to like the video on the way out. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well if you messing with the content. Definitely appreciate y'all. It's S.E.T&KEY Media, man. I'm going ahead and chime out for tonight, man. It's Key, your favorite, biggest four-headed YouTuber, and I'm timing out. Peace.